Hello, everyone. Welcome to Acid-Base Balance. I'm Dr. Mustafa. The first lesson today will be on acid-base balance. So a subsequent slide, we're going to talk about the pathologies of it. But right now, we're looking at mainly the physiology. So when you hear the topic acid-base balance, what are you thinking about? I mean, I'm sure it's those high school knowledge that comes in your head. Acid just means something that either changed the litmus paper red or maybe has a pH of less than 7. And the base, we know how it changes the litmus paper blue and has a pH more than 7. I mean, that's what we were taught in high school. So why are we supposed to learn it in medicine? It's because the body or the substances on the cells in our body work at a specific pH. And as soon as there is any change in the pH, um, the cells would not actually be able to function well. Think about this. How do you feel if you are in a very hot weather? Or imagine how do you feel if you have your hand in an acid? So far as your environment has changed, you would clearly not be feeling very comfortable where you are. So our body has systems in place that is called the buffer system that it puts those systems in place to make sure that we cannot or we do not see the effect or the pH of the body does not change abruptly. So as soon as there is a change in the pH, the body puts mechanism in place to actually undo the change. And this idea was coined by a famous chemist called Le Chatelier, a French chemist. He spoke about Le Chatelier's principle. What he just said is that if there is stress on one side of the equation in an equilibrium equation, the equation move in a direction so that it can undo the stress that has been applied on it. All he's trying to say is that if you're sitting on a seesaw, seesaw is a balance. I mean, you can see that balance wood. When you sit on one side, clearly, what would happen on the other side? The other side would raise, and if you sit on the other side, the other part would raise. So it's the same thing. If you put or you have too much substances in this area, it will lead to the number of product that would be created would increase, all because it's trying to undo the effect till a stable equilibrium is actually maintained. Easy peasy. So when it comes to acid-base balance, all you need to know, all you need to master is this equation. This equation just says carbon dioxide plus water. That is the carbon dioxide produced by tissue. It combines with water, and by the action of the enzyme carbonic anhydrase, an enzyme located inside the kidney and the erythrocytes, to be specific, leads to the formation of carbonic acid. And this carbonic acid spontaneously dissociates to form a weak base, which is bicarbonate, and then hydrogen ion. All of us can say for sure that hydrogen ion, this positive charge, hydrogen ion, is a major determinant whether something is acidic or basic. So we can safely say from this equation that if we increase the amount of carbon dioxide, it will mean that we'll increase the formation of hydrogen ion. Easy peasy. Lastly, Chatelier's principle. We put pressure on one side of the seesaw, the other side will rise so that it can undo that effect. Right? So the body has three major systems it puts in place to make sure that we do not have that abrupt change in those pH. So the very first part is the blood mechanism. So inside the blood on the erythrocyte, as soon as there is an increased hydrogen ion that is formed in the erythrocyte, the next thing that would happen is that, let's say for some reason, metabolic reactions lead to an increased formation of hydrogen. The next thing that would happen is it will lead to the spontaneous formation of this substance, which is the acid. And then later, it would lead to the formation of the carbon dioxide that will be excreted through the respiratory system. And this brings us to the next part, which is the respiratory mechanism. So basically, the blood mechanism is just the spontaneous reaction. The respiratory mechanism is the major contributor to this, basically the respiratory and kidney mechanism. Let's go to kidney mechanism first. Kidney mechanism is just easy. You all know that our body the kidney is responsible for releasing substances, or that is where excretion occurs. Now, The kidney mechanism is that when the kidney feels like the blood is too much acidic or it's too acidic, the only thing the kidney would do, yeah, what do you think? It would just excrete hydrogen ions so that the acidic nature of the blood would decrease. On the other side, if there is too much base, what the body would do is that it would excrete bicarbonate and absorb more hydrogen so that it can undo that effect. It's all in the principle of Le Chatelier, that smart scientist, right? So it's not rocket science. This is what they do. Now, let's re-talk about the respiratory mechanism. What happens in the respiratory mechanism? So the respiratory mechanism has to do with the lungs. So you can easily guess this. It just means that carbon dioxide is excreted or we take it out through the respiratory system. So if in case we have too much hydrogen, it leads to increased breathing rate so that they go out. Whereas if we have less acid, it means what we just do is that we decrease our rate of breathing so that carbon dioxide can stay in our body to produce more hydrogen ions. You see how it works? So with just this few minutes, we're able to explain these three things. So now, to better understand this, let's take a man who is trying to exercise, right? Man is trying to exercise. Let's say this is the muscles, tissue, and then this is the blood vessel. Okay. Right. I know my blood vessel is crooked, but and then the next thing is we have our lungs here. Okay. Let's put it closer. And then we have our very good friend, the controller of all respiration, the medulla oblongata. Okay, so if you do not know, the respiratory center is actually located in the medulla oblongata. And then this medulla oblongata, through the let's give it a different color, through the phrenic nerve, it innervates the diaphragm that basically leads to the contraction of these substances, right? So it innervates the diaphragm that leads to the contraction of the lungs to increase the breathing rate. So this is what happens in the body. As soon as we find out that if someone is exercising a lot, our body takes in oxygen, and after using the oxygen, they release the carbon dioxide. So let's say carbon dioxide, let's use a better color. I love blue. Let's say carbon dioxide is increased inside the tissue. What would our body do? Our body will try to release the carbon dioxide, but in releasing that, first of all, in the blood is converted to what we call hydrogen. So they are converted to hydrogen ions. Now, the respiratory center in the medulla oblongata is able to sense any change in hydrogen. So this hydrogen through the CSF goes to the respiratory center. So this will give a positive feedback on the respiratory center. So let's say positive feedback, right? And after this positive feedback, what do you think the respiratory center will tell the diaphragm? It will just tell the diaphragm to increase its rate and strength of contraction. And when that happens, if it begins to contract harder, so it means that we will start what we call hyperventilation, meaning we are breathing deeper and then we are breathing out also deeper, like we go fully in and we go fully out. What is the body trying to achieve? It is just trying to make sure that this excess carbon dioxide would be taken out. So when you increase your strength of breathing out, more carbon dioxide will leave the respiratory system. So the carbon dioxide comes here, the increase here. So more of it will just leave the respiratory system. Now, when more carbon dioxide is released from the respiratory system, it will get to a point that the hydrogen ion will decrease. and it would attain its normal level. And when it attains its normal level, our level of breathing in and out would decrease. So that is why when you finish exercising, you go and sit down and you start panting like it is the end of the world. This is what is happening in the body, easy peasy. It's just what we call a compensatory mechanism. So this brings us to this knowledge, right? So if, let's say, for some reason, the respiratory system has been blocked, and it leads to, let's use the next slide to actually explain this. Let's use COPD, for instance. Think that you do have a balloon, right? So this is a balloon. And you've inflated the balloon, but in deflating the balloon, you put your hand around here, all right? So let's draw another balloon. You pinch the balloon on the side. You know, COPD is basically mucus accumulated on our bronchus, right? So you pinch the balloon. So like if it is too much, when the lumen is decreased, clearly the air that you're trying to release out of the balloon would not be able to go well. And what do you think would happen? As soon as that happens, if the air cannot go out, what happens in the body? Carbon dioxide is accumulated in the lungs, which means that carbon dioxide is accumulated in the blood as well. And when we have increased carbon dioxide, the Chateliers principle, what would happen? Hydrogen ions would increase, exactly. And when that happens, as soon as we have increased hydrogen ions, meaning the acidic nature of the blood is high, we would have what we call an acidosis. What the body would try to do is that it would use other mechanism, which is mainly the kidney, to actually take out the excess hydrogen. So we can safely say that. So we'll talk about different, in our next video, we'll talk about acidosis, respiratory acidosis and alkalosis, but this is just the general picture. Watch the next video and you would understand this better. See this statement, we are going to talk about it, that respiratory alkalosis is compensated by a metabolic acidosis, whereas respiratory acidosis is compensated by a metabolic alkalosis. We'll understand this statement better in our next slide, in our next class. So watch the video and stay tuned. Again, this is what I just explained to all of you. And this brings us to this final question. They say that, so we just spoke about the renal mechanism as well. So the question here is that a group of mountain climbers went through a blood analysis at a height of 3,000 meters. It revealed that a decrease in bicarbonate occurred. And then they asked that, what is the mechanism of the bicarbonate decrease? Choose your right answer. Tell me why and comment why you think that is the right answer. Let's meet in the next video so that we discuss this. Okay. Thank you very much. Leave your comments below. And it was nice having a chat with you.